I'm getting a duplication error
Yep.
when I try to run that db migrate.
Let's look at your other migration file here that I see is untracked. Okay, so that one creates songs. Interesting. I think you have possibly like migrations that haven't run yet because this create table songs is running. So can you scroll up in the terminal?
That's all I have. It's been cleared. I reset my internet.
Can I look at your schema? Cool. That looks good. And then let's look at let's look at the other migration files. I just want to look at all of them. Cool. So that one, let's get the next one. Cool. Cool. Okay. Okay. That all looks fine to me. So let's run it again. Just want to see. Cool. Okay. So then it looks like to me that your database and your schema have diverged somehow. So can we open Postico? Cool. That looks how I would somewhat expect, but that's a little different than what your actual schema looks like because playlist exists on it.
I actually
Okay.
had this same issue.
Nice. I've got an idea. Let's do a drop.
Yeah, that's what I just did, drop and setup again, and it worked.
Yeah. Yeah, you don't have to do any. Yeah, let's just do a drop by itself. Or actually, yeah, let's just do a drop.
So when you run just drop,
It couldn't
what
do it. Okay,
exactly
cool.
are you asking it to do?
You're asking it to like for basically delete the actual database, like not a table, the whole thing. So,
okay, that's what I thought. So you'd have to reseed anything, right?
Yeah, so let's look at so this is a good error to also look at. So if Postico is connected to your database and Rails is connected, one of them is not allowed to delete it while the other is connected. So something to note. So we just have to go to Postico and like quit, basically.
Just like force quit it, or what's the
I
proper way to
think
do that?
I think if you just command Q. Yeah. Cool. Now let's try it. All right, so now let's do a rake DB setup. And what setup does is it does create migrate seed.
And then if we run that, if we just run the test again, we can see if we're getting that same error.
I think you'll probably, it looks like you have one pending migration there that didn't run.
Okay.
So let's look at create playlist songs. Let's look at that migration real quick. Yeah, okay.
And so it should just be rake db migrate.
Yeah, but that should have happened when you ran it. So let's run it. I don't know why that one didn't come through also. Okay, cool. I think it's like in one of those states, since it hadn't run yet and wasn't tracked by Git, it might have like treated it slightly different, but then, yeah, I don't know why that one didn't run as part of the setup.
Okay, I think this is more along the lines of the error I actually was supposed to get.
Cool. Yeah, and that's
that.
like, of course, yeah, that's like not something that we would generally do, but it's also not something like we generally wouldn't be like asking y'all to, clone down different parts of this, like this repo at different times for different branches. Like generally we would be just working off of the same repo, and like that would be our source of truth. But because of the way that like classes and how we kind of just want y'all to be like in a certain place for class, and we don't mind if y'all like play around on your own. But then there's this like issue where sometimes the histories of the schema diverge, and then it's like from that point it's just better to restart. You're muted, Alex.
I was saying, so we actually have like, you wanted us back in here at 10:30 or 11:30?
11:30.
Cool. Well,
Yeah.
I'll get out of your hair and go get this done. Thank you.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah, Eli, go ahead.
Cool. I just had a kind of a quick question about the index spec part. So let's see. I think like I get it, kind of the setup of it. We're creating a bunch of playlists and artists and songs for those artists, and then when we call playlist song.create, kind of wondering, like, is this just accepted syntax to include the I guess it would be, so like Purple, for example, is a collection of Prince songs, basically. How can, like, do we not have to include, and maybe here I'll share just so
Yeah, just go ahead and
we
share.
can
Let's see.
see this. Do you see my screen?
Yep.
So like
Purple actually isn't a collection of Prince songs, so I want to be clear about that.
Oh,
Purple is the song
is the
instance
song
that like was
okay.
created on 16, and that syntax is just like some active record shorthand syntax that allows you to associate the artist
Like
the artist as you create the song.
I guess my question is, like, so since playlist song is just going to be pretty much a table that contains the foreign keys of like the relationship, how can we, like, why don't we have to do this?
Yeah. So you could do that if you named it song ID and playlist ID, but this is again active record, making some assumptions kind of under the hood, and based on the object that you have created and based on the relationships, it's saying like, oh, I know what to do here, basically.
Okay, that makes perfect sense. That's kind of what I was assuming, but I wasn't quite sure. I just wanted to.
And the whole reason, like generally we would create playlists, songs, artists all the same way, like one way or the other. The reason we're showing you this is just so you can see that like this is a valid approach, and you'll see this happen occasionally, like in the code bases.
Okay, I guess what's the I read that and I was kind of wondering what's the alternative to that, to this.
Yeah, so the alternative would be like to give it a song ID and a playlist ID.
I see what you mean. Okay.
Yeah.
Sweet. Thank you.
The other thing you could do, so the other thing you could do is you could go, so like you could do it for a song. You could be like song dot playlist songs dot create, And then, so it would already have the song attached, and now you would need to just put in the playlist ID. So you could do it that way too. Or you could start on playlist, go playlist songs, then you'd have to give it the song ID.
Gotcha. Okay, that makes sense. Sweet.
Yep. Cool. Joe, I think you were in here next.
Oh, sorry, I came back at the wrong time. So just here to leach information, I guess.
Okay, yeah, we're gonna come back at 11:30, but you can, I mean, you can stick around, you can leave whatever you want. And then, yeah, Robert, did you have a question, or were you just kind of coming back?
Yeah, I just was coming back too.
Okay, cool. Okay, do you mind just asking one more time, just for this recording purposes?
Yeah, sure. So like if I were to call song.all, which is going to give me all my songs, and then if I call dot first, so I just have one song, then basically with the way that we've set up these relationships, I could then call dot playlists, and it would give me all of the playlists that that song is in.
Absolutely, yeah.
Okay.
That's exactly what the active record helpers can give you.
Cool.
And it's good that you made the note that you first had to call dot first. So you have to be on a single song instance to have access to that.
Okay.
Yep.
Gotcha.
So I'm kind of right before a playlist has many song headers, like 2/3 way down the page or so. And I keep, so this is the error it's throwing. So I
Okay.
even kind of looked ahead into like the song model and tried to see if this would fix it. The schema seems to make sense to me that they should have the relationship. It's got a playlist, foreign key, song, foreign key.
Cool. Yeah, let's look at the playlist song model. Cool. All right, now let's look at the test. And that test runs just fine, right?
No, I think that's actually what.
Okay, this is the one that's breaking. Well, you're running the playlist spec, so playlist spec is, yeah, gonna be, I think you have it open in the window over there. But this, yeah, let's run this one and make sure. But I think this looks good to me. You need cannot load such file. Can you scroll up a little? That makes me think, oh, it looks like the playlist song is at the root of, or at the root of the spec folder and not in the models folder.
Ah. Okay.
So that looks good. All right, so let's look at this playlist spec before you run it. Yeah, okay. Cool, yeah, let's run it. Yeah, okay, so what it's saying here is, yeah, it doesn't have this has many called songs. I believe that your through right here, it actually needs to be playlist songs instead of playlists songs.
Oh, right here.
Yeah, I think that's what it is. Let's give it a shot.
Poor spelling is going to be the death of me.
Well, it's tough in this mod. There's a lot of of that plural, singular stuff going on, and that's like I would just try to like remind myself, like, let me get in the habit. If I feel like things are set up right, like, let me just get in the habit of rechecking that, like, I've named something, you know, singularly versus plurally or vice versa. Because that's like, it's just a common thing that you're going to run into.
Cool. I appreciate it.
For sure.
In regards to like nested resources, kind of like just looking at the project. So the last, which I don't have it open. Maybe I should do that first. Give me just a second here.
Cool.
So here, I'm just gonna go ahead and share. But like, so basically these resources I think can, or these routes can be, you know, shorthanded into these kind of things. But I'm
Yep.
kind of curious, since our shelters, whatever this is, like, I don't know how to refer to this path. I guess the pet, it basically redirects to the pet's show page, I guess, or it's going to show that at that URL. Is there a way, like, if I was to, I know you can nest resources, and so like you would do resources shelters, and then inside the block you would do like resources pets. And I know you can like limit, you know, to do, this is kind of actually what I had before, but
Yep.
I'm wondering if there's a way to like just have one of those kind of reroute to this different controller and action, or if this is kind of an instance where it makes sense to hand roll.
Yeah, so you want to put that in the pets show. I mean, I would say like that there's no reason for that route to be hand rolled and not in the shelter pets controller, because it's like the nesting is still there. It's just slightly different because you named it ID instead of shelter ID, and that will actually be ambiguous because of the way that dynamic because you have two dynamic segments there called ID. So the first
Yeah,
thing I would want to do is name, that shelter ID.
I think this is just how it was. I haven't really touched the
Okay.
actual route, but like
Yeah.
in terms of, because I think that when you run this, like, I think I was playing around with only a little bit, but like, how would you differentiate and tell one route to just go there, or would you just create a shelter pets show action that just redirects to, well, I guess, yeah, I guess like, I'm just curious of how to navigate that. Maybe that's a little bit.
Well, I think it's a good question. So you have to think like, I would argue that I would actually argue that there's no reason for you to need the shelter ID if it's just a pet show page, right? Because like
Yeah,
the shelter ID is necessary if we're like nesting, this specific shelter's pets, but like a pet can be shown by itself with just a pet ID, like with just its own ID, and like that's all it really needs. And you get that route from doing resources pets there. Like, so you already have um that pet show on line 16, which is where basically you're thinking of routing. So like you don't even, I would make the argument that like you don't need 28.
okay.
It's
And
kind of redundant.
I was thinking that too. I just wasn't sure, I guess, like, being a little unfamiliar with what the rest of the project is going to look like, if it would, like, I think I would have to go change some things to kind of reflect that, like, if I was going to change it. I think we get some failing tests there, but like, would you essentially just, you'd have to like redirect somewhere, right?
Yeah, well, where are you trying to go? From where to where are you trying to go?
um I guess like just looking at this, because I'm not super sure, to be honest. I guess I'm just trying to, like, whenever we, go here, I want it to go to the pets show action, I guess.
I gotcha.
But I guess like I see what you're saying. We already have a pet show page, so it's like whenever we click on it, let's say we're on shelters pets index, then or shelter pets index, then I guess whenever we click on a pet, it should just redirect us to this route we already have up here.
Yeah, that's what I think.
Instead of like in my eyes, you could just go infinitely. Like this is almost like a loop the way I see it. Because then like I don't know. It doesn't make too much sense. But
the whole thing with this, like that final route is like you can go there, you can define it, but like you only really want to go to that specific route if you're not just showing the pet, but you're also showing the shelter. And like it's basically a pet show that you want, but that you also want to show the shelter on. So like you can do it, but I would not direct it to the pets show I wouldn't direct it straight to the pets controller and then the show action, because then we're like leaving out the shelter ID even being relevant. And
right.
the other way that we could like the other option, if we wanted the shelter ID to be relevant, we're like, hey, we want to show this. Well, now we have one action that now has two use cases that are different. So we have to create logic around that. And that's like going to break single responsibility principle and just not be like the best design pattern.
Yeah.
So like, it's okay to have both of these routes, but you don't want to route them to the same action. You'd want to create a new action for this final route.
Okay. And was this just included in here for us to struggle over? I guess.
Don't think so. No, you have to. So I would ask for like some empathy that this is a new project and there's going to be some kinks to like work
No,
out
I
along
completely.
the way.
I get it. I expect there to be like wrenches in the way, but
Yeah.
okay, cool. I think that makes sense. I guess it's just figuring out what tests I break. Cool.
Yeah, good question though. Yeah, for sure. Go ahead.
Cool. So I reached the end of this and I kind of just powered through. I think the only thing that I didn't 100% understand but can intuitively guess or would be the within keyword. I don't know if we went over it before, but it seems like it's essentially like the test that we were talking about when we had that check-in or eval where you're able to select CSS selectors or even HTML elements. So I'm guessing that within we'll take the parameter or argument of like some container of an HTML element and only check within anything inside that container. Is that right?
That's correct.
Okay, cool. Awesome.
Yep, you got it. You explained it perfectly.
Cool. I'm going to go back to eating.
Okay, cool.
Around and maybe I just am not familiar. Like I haven't familiarized myself with the project enough, but like back on these routes, like so I've got like these two failing tests and I'm kind of looking at this first one here. Let's see, which one is this? So it's like I don't understand. I don't even see like the route that like the pets show page like anywhere. It's not visiting it anywhere, so I'm a little confused as to why these two tests are failing after I omit that.
Yeah, that's interesting. Maybe that
Like-
one's just failing, like because that one should to not have content. Okay, to play because pet 2 has some condition that it's not allowed to be looked at. Okay, so let's look. Yeah, so it's this to not have content pet2.name, and that content does show up. So there should be like a reason that pet is not able to be adopted. That is like not being set here for some like. There's
That-
I think there's a condition that's like that's supposed to not be met, but is being met, is kind of like the failure here, like where it's like, oh, there's supposed to be a condition in that page that says like filter out these pets if they're not adoptable based on this. And it looks like because of the way that it's failing, like that it is that pet 2 is showing up.
Yeah, I guess I'm just having trouble finding this original route anywhere in the, and maybe I'm attacking it wrong, but or like I should be looking at something else.
Well, let's look at the pets controller and then the
That's-
shelter pets controller.
Okay, there's probably a redirect or something.
That looks right to me.
Yeah, that looks okay. And then there's
There's no show. I think that route might just be like not a route that you should have to worry about because I don't see it defined.
it seems to be relevant to the test passing though. That's kind of where I'm trying to figure out, like, how is it getting that idea? Or how is it making things fail if it doesn't exist? It must be relevant somewhere.
Yeah, well, I can tell you like it's going to that. I don't think that the test failing is related to that route, but like if you're saying
Really?
like, yeah, you're saying like if you comment it back in, then these tests work.
Yes.
Okay.
So if I do that, and maybe it's the way I have my resources set up or something. I don't quite know.
Cool. Okay, let's just comment out that last one.
Yeah, I guess that'd be a good way to tell. Aha. Okay, cool.
Yeah,
I
so
think
you,
yeah.
yeah, I think it's because that shelter, like that, at least the one that we were looking at was that 25 was the one, I believe. Like that was the one that you need a shelter pets index for that specific test. And I think if you
Maybe I should check my Rails routes and see.
yeah, and that's a great thing to do every time you make a change, right? Like do a Rails routes and see if you have everything that you need, because every time you're making like a slight change, those routes are different.
Yeah. Okay. I'll continue to look into it from there. That was helpful though. I kind of, for some reason I was thinking it was that route, but it looks like I'll double check, make sure my routes are looking good.
Okay, cool. All right, welcome back everyone. Yeah, I'm ready to jump into this. I want to try and get through this, show you what like my process looks like for solving this. And yeah, feel free to stop me if you have questions at any point. And yeah, I think that's it. Cool. So I've went ahead and added some tests. And I'm gonna start by running those tests individually. This one's my models, this is my playlist spec. And one thing to note here is the order here is gonna matter because I want to check first, I have done nothing yet. I want to check first that I can attach a playlist to my playlist songs joins table before I wanna check that I can go through that joins table to my songs. All right, so that's what I'm gonna check first. And I'm gonna let my errors guide me here. Cool, uninitialized constant playlist. That makes sense. I haven't created that, so let's go do that. I'm gonna go in here to my models. Yeah, and create it right here. Playlist.rb, and I'm gonna create the class. Cool. Let's run it again. Cool. So this might be an error that you haven't seen yet. Should reflect on association for playlist class. Maybe you got this, maybe you didn't. I wanted to show it. One thing I want to do here is I want to make sure that I'm inheriting from application record. Super easy thing to forget, but that's how we're going to get our active record methods and associations set up. Cool, let's run it again. Okay, now I get a very different error, right? And it's basically saying like, hey, I have a poor active record statement here because my relation playlist does not exist. So I need to go create that table. And that's what I'll do. So this is going to be migration. I'm going to say Rails G migration. Right? Is it migrate or migration? I think it's migration. Yeah, cool. And then I'm going to say I'm going to create playlist, and then I want this playlist to have a name attribute that's a string, and I think that's about it. Cool. So I've got this file now that I can go check out. Create playlist. Cool. And I think I'll just add some timestamps in here because they're nice to have. And now I want to run this. I've created my migration, but I haven't migrated my tables. So let's do that. Cool, that looks like it went okay. Let's check the schema to make sure. Cool, gave me my timestamps, and now I have this new table here. All right, let's run the test again. Cool, definitely a different error. Expected playlist to have a has many association called playlist songs. Okay, so at this point, I have some options, right? And I would say at this point, what I would rather do is go set up my playlist songs table from scratch, because what this error is actually really saying is like, I just don't have this has many set up in my playlist model, but I know as a developer that I'm going to need, like, just giving it the has many playlist songs is not enough. I need a table called playlist songs. So at this point, I'm going to switch to testing, to TDDing a playlist songs table. All right, and so playlist songs spec, cool. And I've got this set up already, so I'm gonna start running this spec and see what it tells me to do. Okay, similarly, uninitialized constant, all right. And it tells me, like what it's looking for based on what I've said here. So playlist song is what I'm going to call it. Remember, we name our models singularly. I don't have it yet, so I need to go create that. Cool, then I'll give it the class inheriting from application record. And let's see what it tells me to do now. Okay, cool. And now I get this similar error to what I had before where, hey, you don't have a playlist songs table and you need to go create that. So I will do that. I will say Rails G migration. And I want to create playlist songs. And then I know I want to reference some tables, and this may be, it's not quite new syntax, but it's something that we want to try to get right from the command line so that our migration is set up correctly. All right, and so this is probably something that you're going to need to reference a couple times to get the syntax right. The thing to remember is it's column name first and then data type second. And so it's the same as it was when I ran this. Let me just copy this real quick and look at the other one. Okay. So remember, when I created playlist, column name first, data type second. All right, so it's going to be the same way here. Oh, you hate to see it. Okay, I'll write it out again. Create playlist songs. So column name first, song, which refers to my songs table. But since it's going to be a song, this is actually going to create a song ID on this table. and there's only going to be one of them, weirdly enough, we reference it in the singular. So I say song references, and then I say playlist references. Cool, that looks okay. All right, let's look at this. What is it called? It's called create playlist songs. Sorry, the dog is just being very needy. All right, so when I see this, this looks good to me because it's like, hey, I'm referencing a song on this table. I'm also referencing a playlist. These are going to be foreign keys. I've got my playlist songs table being created. This looks good to me. This is what I expect to see, what I want to see. It's okay to mess this up. One thing I want to show you before you run your migration, remember, if you look at this and you're like, this is not what I expected, this is not what I want, you can always go in here, you can delete this file, right? Move it to the trash. It's gone. It's out of my life forever. If I screw it up, that's okay. I can do this. Create it again because I know that that was right, but I just want to show you like that is a okay step. Okay. Yeah, we've got Adam. Yeah, Adam, what's up?
Yeah, why can't you just go in and edit the migration file?
I can definitely do that, but like if I'm thinking I don't want to do that and I just want to run the command line option like correctly, so it sets it up for me so I can avoid any syntax errors in my migration file, then I can just delete it and
Got it.
Restart.
So it's possible, but it's safer maybe to go and just recreate it.
I would say either approach is fine. It's more likely you'll make a syntax error than not when you're editing that file. And here's the thing, you can still run Rails DB migrate with syntax errors and it'll tell you like, hey, you did something wrong, and then you go fix it. And it doesn't actually migrate until everything is right. Yeah, good question there. All right, cool. Let's run this. Okay, I've got the table. Let's look at the schema. Okay, this is what I'm hoping to see here. I've got my indexes. I've got my song ID, my playlist ID, and then I can see like I've got these foreign keys down here. So things look like they went pretty well, and I'm feeling good. Now I need to run my test. So that's not the command I want to run. I like the up arrow. Cool. Let's go back to the test that I'm working on, which is playlist song. Nope, not that. Playlist song spec. Cool. Okay. Now I get a similar error, right, that I had to before, where it's like, hey, you don't have this association. I expected a belongs to association. I don't see it. That's very similar to the error that I saw in the playlist where it was like, hey, expect to have mini association. I don't see it. So at this point, I feel good about going into my playlist song table because I know I have, or my model, I know I've got the corresponding table, and I want to create my belongs to helper here so that active record can know to reference the correct table. So belongs to a song, belongs to a playlist, maybe just based on the way things are named, I'll put it like that. This shouldn't matter, like the order of this, but let's see. I can get a passing test. Cool, and that was it for this playlist spec. All right, should belong to a playlist, should belong to a song, or this, I should say this playlist song spec. Once I've got this, it's like, all right, this table looks to be set up. Now my job is to go and create my many-to-many relationship through this table. All right, so now I will switch back to running my playlist spec. Got a passing test for playlist songs. So let's look at playlist spec. Cool. And what you'll notice here is nothing has changed. The error is the exact same, right? Because I didn't have a has many association before, and I don't have one now. But I have the ability to do it now because then my table exists, my model exists, and the belongs to is set up on my playlist song spec. So let's look at, let's go to the playlist. And now I will say, all right, let's focus on one at a time. Let's say, I want has many playlist songs. Cool, let's see if we can get this down to one error now. Indeed, that's what I get. Now it says I should have many songs through playlist songs. That's still the one that's failing. Let me see if I can make this. I don't want that one. Okay. So this line is good to go. Now we need to get this line going. And so the way to do that, now this one, order does matter. All right. So in this one, it's like, I got to tell it that it has many of the joins table, and then I can say I can go through the joins table. So in this case, it does matter, order does. So now I will say I want to have many songs through playlist songs. Oh, and I need a colon, and I'll autocomplete like that. Let's look at this. Let's run this test. I think it's going to work now. But I want to show you some of the ways that it cannot work. Let's forget this comma, right? Shows up on my linter, but let's just see what this error will be. Syntax error. Indeed, kind of shows me where it's supposed to be. This arrow is pointing at the right place. So that's nice. Let's forget this colon. Cool, undefined local variable or method playlist songs. So that's telling me like, hey, now it's looking for a local variable or method that doesn't exist. It's not looking for my table anymore, or it's not looking for my joins table, my joins model. It's looking for a method or a local variable that doesn't exist. So a couple things to watch out for, because I know this is all new syntax. Cool. Let's run it again and make sure I'm in a good place. And I am. All right, great. That looks good. Now what I want to do is I want to go to my song and I want to join this stuff. Or actually, let's do one more example of how things can go wrong. So if I go to my playlist song joins table, and this is why it's good to set up the joins table like in isolation when you know you're going to have it. Like, hey, I'm going to create the table. I'm going to make sure my belongs to helpers are set up correctly. And I'm going to verify that with shoulda. Because if I get rid of these two, and then I run my playlist spec, right? Let's see what happens. Not a very helpful error. Undefined method class name for nil class. And then I'm looking, and it's happening on the line 6 of the spec. So let's see where that is. Yeah, okay. So it's like, hey, I can't figure out how to join these two things together because you said you have many playlist songs. So this one actually passes, which is interesting. Right? It's only looking for this association here. And it's like, yeah, you got that one. That's all good. Even though on my table, I don't have this belongs to. So where it actually fails is once I try to go through, because I can't go through without having my belongs to helper. All right. So something to note, this is not a helpful error really at all. But what I would think here is like, okay, I have my has many playlist songs. Now it's trying to go to songs through this. So I need to go look at these models and make sure that things are set up correctly. Okay, let's comment these back in. And yeah, I think that we're all good now. All right, so now I want to go to my song, and I know I need to set up my song to have similar similar relationships, right? I need to go from song to playlist. So I've already added these two shoulda matchers here. I should have many playlist songs, and I should have many playlist through playlist songs. So similarly, we're just going the other way. And if I run this, I want to really focus in on these relationships here. So let's run 32. Cool. I don't have a has many, and then I also don't have this has many through. So let's go see if I can fix that. Again, order matters. Has many playlist songs first. Then it needs to be has many playlists through playlist songs. All right, and so once I set those up, I believe these tests will pass. Cool, and they do. So a little bit easier here once I've set things up correctly on the joins table, and for one half of the has many of the many to many, then the other way is a little bit easier. Questions on this process? This is going to be the process for y'all setting up many to minis. It's going to be something that there's a lot of steps, easy to mess up. But the more practice you get, the more fluid you'll become. Eli, go ahead.
Would you be able to go over kind of how we would set up a dependent destroy in this scenario?
Not today.
Okay.
Yep. Good question though. I'll say it's a good one for you to go Google and implement on your own. But yeah, good question. Max, go ahead.
Yeah, can you speak to why we would do the has many through instead of like has many and belongs to?
Got you. Well, in this case, I don't have many and belong to. Oh, you're saying like this syntax here, like why I wouldn't say has many and belongs to in one line on the shoulda matchers?
No, within the class itself.
Okay,
yeah.
So there's other so I can say, because I don't have many and belong to one entity, right? Like I belong to an artist and I have many playlist songs and I have many playlists through playlist songs, but I don't have and belong to one thing.
Okay.
There is some other, so there is some other active record syntax that I think is what you're talking about. To be honest, I think it works slightly different and I'm not positive what the nuance is, but this is the way that I know like 100% works for the joins table and for the mini to mini. So this is the way that I go with. Yeah. Okay.
Great, thanks.
Yeah, for sure. If you have more information on that and like you play around with it, I just haven't played around with it, and I haven't seen it on the job either. Like I haven't seen that syntax, but I remember now that you're mentioning it that it exists. If you have more information, then follow up in code help, but I don't. Yeah, cool. All right, so now I know that the next thing I want to do is I want to see if I can add an index page for my playlists that will basically show my playlists with all of the songs that playlist has. Cool. So yeah, we're kind of, and another thing to note here, if I open this index spec, I'm creating these records slightly differently as we do it here. Like this syntax you might not have seen, or you might have been like, what, this is weird. How can I just give it the objects? It's just a way that Active Record has available to you. And there are a number of other ways that you could do it. I could just say like, okay, I know I have a song called Purple, and I want to create a playlist association with Purple. That is, well, let's say we want to create a new playlist. So I could go purple.playlist.create. And then this could be, what name for this playlist? Let's say top 100. And so this is another syntax that I can give it. And so this creates the playlist. And basically the playlist song record gets created under the hood away from you, like abstracted away from you, but it's creating this record in the database, which is different than how I would do it if I'm doing it like this. This is another way to associate when they both exist already, right? Like Purple and Uplifting Sound have both been created above. So this is how I can associate those two when they've already been created. If I have one and I know I am creating the other, then I can create that association on the fly the way that I'm doing it here. Okay. So I want to get rid of this line and run this spec. This is going to be in features. This is going to be playlists and then index. Cool. Let's have some errors guide me. Cool. First one's a routing error. So I know how to do that. I'm going to go back here, go to my routes, add it. It's going to be a get playlists, which is going to go to a playlist controller. And this will be an index action. Great. The error here is uninitialized constant playlist controller. Remember, it gives me what it's looking for here, right? It's telling me based on how I name this route, I expect a playlists controller. So I can copy and paste that because I don't want to screw up the singularity, or in this case, the plurality of this controller. So I can go create it. Okay, this is going to be a playlists controller.rb. My class is copied. It's called playlist controller, and then it inherits from application controller. I also know I'm going to need an index. So I'll create that. And then I also know I'm kind of skipping ahead a little bit, but it will be at playlist, that equals playlist.all. Cool. So I know that this is going to be the stuff that I need here. Let's see if what error we get now. I think we'll get the undefined template error. Uninitialized constant. Okay, what playlists controller? Where playlists? Interesting. Okay, index spec, line 3 and index. Okay, so I named this wrong. Cool, now I get the template error. And let's go create that in the view. Where's my views? There it is. State. Okay, remember I have to tell it which directory to look in for this file because I've got a bunch of index.html.erbs, so we got to nest it here. Cool. And then in here, now I expect all of my connections, model view controller, to be correct. Now I expect my content to not be there, right? Like I just won't have any content. Okay, so this is great. So this is within failure because Capybara is like, hey, within this ID, and it's like, I don't have any CSS on the page that is this ID, which happens to be playlist-13. 13 is this rock IDs for this specific run. I'm gonna run this one more time. and show you that now it's looking for playlist 16. So remember that as we run our test database is updated and the IDs are changing and changing. So we can't rely on an ID to be the same across runs. So we can't hard code an ID. We can only reference it based on the object that it belongs to. Something to note there. Cool. And just for the sake of time, I'm going to do what I told you not to do, but I will walk through it line by line. So I'm going to copy and paste this in. And there's not really any big changes here, except for probably this section. You might have not seen this like dynamic ID assignment. So remember, I get access to playlists because it was passed here from this action. And I'm going to iterate over those, and I want to show every playlist. And then for each playlist, I also want to show all of its songs. All right. And so there's a number of connections happening here. But remember, every playlist is going to have an ID. So I can assign my ID dynamically by putting it in quotes here. And now for each time we're through this loop, this gets assigned dynamically via my ERB tags, right? So each of these playlists is going to have a different ID, and now I can depend on targeting a specific playlist on the page via this selector. All right, so this is very powerful when it comes to being able to test and being able to target things specifically. All right, so this is maybe a pattern you've used, maybe one you haven't, but wanted to show you it here. Remember, I'm still on a singular playlist object. It has a name. And then here, now remember, from a singular playlist object, I can go to songs. All right. So now I've created a nested loop here, or I'm sorry, some nested iteration here. And now for each playlist, I will also iterate over its songs. And I will say, hey, this will have a song.title. If I wanted to be super explicit and give these some dynamic assignment here, I could do that. If I add in ID, and then I change this to song, and then I change this to song.id. Now I've got dynamic IDs for each song also in here, which is nice to have, right? This is a nice way that I can now target individual songs on the page. And then this will, relate to the song.title. Cool. I've got to end both of these blocks, and I don't want to show these ends, so I don't have the equal sign in these ERB tags. And yeah, let's see if any of this works. Cool, it does. That's great. We should expect that because I just copy and pasted from the lesson. But what is this? The index spec. Just want to show you here. This is the nice way that we can now expect certain songs associated with certain playlists to show up in the right place, right? This is how we're targeting now in a very specific way. All right. It's noon, so I want to let you go. Thanks for sticking around. And I know this was like kind of a long morning, so appreciate y'all. I'll stick around for any questions until y'all run out, but you are free to go. And that's all. Oh, so let me say there's the class survey I'm dropping in the channel right now. And this is why copy clip is nice. Maybe, oh no, I've copied too many things. All right, I'm going to drop it right now, but also what questions do you have? Yeah, Sam, go ahead.
I know that I explained it earlier to you and it sounded pretty okay for the within testing, but taking a second look at it, I guess if you could clear up the syntax of what the argument is specifically, I see that playlist is the ID name, but nowhere in your section ID are you making any part of the ID associated to the rock ID or any playlist ID. So is it looking for, I guess what part does it take in like the playlist.id in the within block or within argument?
Yeah, This is a good call, because you're like, how does it know about this rock.id? And the way that it knows, so there are a number of things going on here, but the playlist, this is my playlist index page, right? So we can reasonably assume that because I did a playlist.all, that all playlists will show up here, right? And all playlists definitely have an ID. They 100% do. So my rock here is this first playlist, and I'm saying, hey, I don't know where on the page exactly rock will be. I'm not sure exactly where they will be, but I do expect it to have a unique ID on the page, and I do expect that I can target that unique ID, because because of like me dynamically assigning each playlist, right, to have this ID on a section tag, and then also me thinking back to my controller and saying like, yep, I asked for all of them in my database. And then the other thing that we have to do is this test is already set up for you, but the other thing we have to expect is like, okay, the rock.name, that's great, that belongs to this specific playlist, but then we have to also look and say, okay, who's associated with who here? And it looks like place, breadbox, and RNC are all associated with this rock playlist. So reasonably now we should expect within this whole section for these songs to show up. And I can also look back at my index and kind of show why that is.
Yeah, I just saw it last second. But yeah, I just to finish up the explanation so I could 100% get it. Yeah.
Totally. Yeah. So this section block ends here. So we are looking at, or actually, this might even be a good chance to do a save and open page here. Okay. Now, if I bring this over and we line it up with our index here. So all I've done right now, this is before the assertions ran. So let me just show you that real quick. I did it right here, right? So I visited the page, and then I expect all this stuff to be there, but this is before any expectation. So I can look at the page as this in time. And now if I'm looking at a section, I assume that a section is basically from here to here. All right. And then if I want to be even more specific and not assume, what I can do now is, if I can remember the shortcut, yeah, I can inspect, right? I can look at my page. I can say, let's make this full screen so we can see it a little better. I can say, hey, I want to check out what this section is. And indeed, when I click on it, let me show you the styles. If I'm looking at this page, this section has an ID, playlist-22. The 22 is the dynamic piece that I am able to target from my tests because I have assigned it dynamically when I'm iterating over playlists and assigning section IDs in my index. All right, so this is like a great way for me to go and look in here. And then also, because I assign my songs dynamically, now each of these songs is also showing up on the page with these dynamic IDs. So now I could even target even closer and be like, this should show up where I want. This should show up in this other place. And so the within blocks are very powerful in that way. And this will it can take an ID, it can take an element, it can take a class name, and it can take a combination of those with some certain syntax. All right, so within is going to give you the power to really kind of like hone in on what part of the page you're talking about.
Yeah, I only caught last second that the ID is including the playlist ID inside the name. So it's dynamically creating like a different ID name every time something's being created, right?
Absolutely. Yeah. The only dynamic part of this is the actual integer ID. We hard coded playlist dash, we hard coded song dash, and then we did the same thing here in our test. We hard code this part, but then we say, hey, this is the dynamic part.
Awesome. Thank you so much.
Absolutely. Good question, Sam. Anything else coming up that y'all want to chat about? right. Shoot, I let y'all go, but Brian had something to say. We will work that out, him and I, but expect a message from Brian shortly. Okay, see y'all.
Thanks, Tim.
Yeah, absolutely. See ya.